In this piece I have a variety of colors, and they're pretty much in selections of nature type of color scheme. We've got this really pretty aqua color. You can see there's a lot of air bubbles there. I'll be letting this sit for just a little bit before we get started. There's also some lumps, so I will be putting some netting across the top before I use it to string that out. But I just wanted to show you the consistency real quick. And this color is Modern Masters Antique Bronze. It's really pretty. I love how shimmery that is. That is just beautiful. And this is a really pretty bronze color that I have from a brand that no longer exists, and I mixed a little bit of copper into it to make that a little bit redder. I really love how smooth that texture is. It is a metallic, but it's not quite as shimmery as that Modern Masters paint was. And this color is also Modern Masters, and it's Champagne. And I think I added in a touch of something to just kind of make it a little bit more of like a earthy type color. Now this is a metallic. It's a turquoise type of metallic, and I muted it down a little bit by adding a darker blue. But there are a lot of other colors in here, so I'll be telling you along the way. I mostly wanted to show you those to show you the thickness, the texture, and I'm going to be using this cup here. I cut the bottom out of this cup, and I'm not entirely sure if these jaggedy edges might add some effects, either for the good or for the not so good, into what I'm going to do. I'm not even really sure, but we're going to find out together. So here I have netting across the top of my white. Now I have two different cups of white, and some of it was based on some leftover paint, and then I added some new paint to just kind of bulk up how much I happen to have for this painting. Even though I don't recall exactly what whites are in the cups, what I do know from just my memory, my vague sort of memory, is that they're different mixtures with different paints. And so it's important to me to keep them separate. I really want to use the same one for my base, including any touch-ups I need to make. And then I can add in some layering from the base white paint as well as the white that's in that other cup. So there I had that metallics. I think that was the Rich Espresso. So additionally in my palette I have DecoArt Metallics Bright Copper, Bright Metallic Paint in Copper. I also have DecoArt Extreme Sheen in Deep Sapphire. And I have Prussian Blue in Liquitex Basics. And I think that's pretty much it. What I did do is I added a couple extra cups where I took some of my colors that I mixed up, and then I combined a few of them together to just make alternate tones. But it's all based out of the same color palette. Alright, so here you see I'm just layering the cup, and I put down that white pillow. It's because it's just kind of bright with the lighting. You can't distinguish the white pillow super clearly from the canvas, but you can kind of tell that it's there. Alright, and now I'm going to be swirling this just to get some textures and shapes going. And we're going to start a new one. So I have sped up a lot of the footage here. I do have some of the footage in this video at normal speed where I felt that that would be very helpful to the understanding. Like, for example, the tilting speed. I do part of that in real time so that you can see how slowly I'm tilting that, but part of it, once you get the idea, I do speed it up again, just to keep the overall length of the video somewhat palatable and enjoyable and considerate of the time that you've got. I love open cut pours because there's just a lot of cells. I stopped doing open cut pours for a while. I had done quite a few of them a few years back, before I started my channel actually. And although I filmed them, because I was new at filming and I really wasn't editing to keep them for YouTube, I wasn't really catching on to the fact that I was not doing them with a very good camera placement. And so I have not ever been able to show most of what I did with open cut pores because of that. Just a lot of the time my head was blocking the camera, for example. But I always really loved the results that I would typically get with open cut pores. And then I went on to other techniques for a while, but I've thought on and off over the past few years, I really should go back to some open cut pores. Alright, so here I'm showing this initial tilting in normal speed for right now because I really want you to see how slowly I am controlling this paint. I am being so careful to not tilt this too quickly. I really want this composition to open up in a very favorable way. Of course, I'm not even entirely sure what it might open up to be like yet, but I just have a feeling that tilting extremely slowly is the best bet. In general, it's a good thing to do with tilting. You know, sometimes you can tilt very quickly and get a good result, but I would say that the odds are higher that by tilting slowly you will get a favorable result. So I have sped up the footage a little bit at this point, and you know, but keep in mind I still continued to tilt very slowly, like the speed that you saw to begin with. I really love some of the cells that I'm seeing at various points within the canvas. And you know, I'm also tilting slowly and carefully to do my best to maintain those cells, the structure of those cells. Sometimes your cells can break apart if you're tilting too quickly. Alright, so now I'm speeding it up a little bit more. At this point, I'm still not really quite sure if I'm going to really like this painting or not. In terms of the flow and the composition, I'm not sure if I'm going to have to add more paint, if I'm going to have to correct anything. It's a little too early for me to tell. But there are some things that do look a little promising. But as I continue to open it up, I start to think, yeah, you know, maybe there's something here. Maybe I'm not going to have to do too much. Alright, so here is where I make an error, a mistake, but I had no idea that I was about to make it. You can see I was touching up the sides over there, just adding a little paint. Now look at this. The paint was a little thin on the canvas, so I picked up what I thought was the cup of the base paint that I had first put down in that pillow. Remember I said earlier in the video, I wanted to make sure that the paint I put down as that pillow would be the same paint I added to any touch-ups to the background. Alright? You're going to see ahead why picking up the other cup of white paint, which I do a little bit more of here, you're going to see what happens that I had no idea of, my friends. I didn't realize until it was dry what actually had happened. Now, taking a look at these beautiful cells, look at this. Ooh, I could not be more pleased. And some of these cells have some of the multiple colors in there. It's got that extreme sheen sapphire, the extreme sheen gold, and that metallics copper. Ooh, look at that. So pretty. And I love it contrasting against that stark white in those areas. This is beautiful. So I'm actually really happy with the flows. So this is actually what happened. Because I needed to add a little bit more paint in these areas, and I did not realize I had grabbed the other cup, which had a completely different mixture in it, it didn't flatten out, it didn't level into the other paint, and it dried with texture instead. Now, in the past, I mean, if this would have happened a year ago, I probably would have felt like this painting is a wash, because I would not have had any ideas of what to do with that. But because of so much interest in adding texture and texturization in combination with paintings these days, and I've been meaning to actually move into that a little bit more myself, I got this idea that I could just take more of that paint mixture, add a little bit more to the painting in different areas to make what happened there happen elsewhere strategically within the rest of the piece. And I end up being able to create something magical. And I'll show you that as we go along. We're going to see what this is going to turn into. I'm just showing here while I'm pointing just some of the different subtle textures that also appeared. And I thought that that was actually quite interesting. And I'm showing with my finger where I'm thinking of adding more of this paint very strategically to just maximize upon what already took place in the accidental phase. Well, I'm going to call it an accidental, but hey, maybe it was, that vaster part of myself just brought that through without my conscious awareness knowing anything about it. So I'm showing that in this brighter white area, like this little river of white on the upper side of those copper cells. I'm showing that I'm thinking that this might be a good place for me to add some more of this texturization. I'm overall looking at some of these other white areas as well, thinking that I'm going to bump them up just a little bit because I want to disperse this texturization through the painting to make it look like it happened strategically in areas throughout the composition, making it make sense and tie together. So here I am, this is where I'm starting. This is my first edition in a purposeful way. My very first editions obviously were not meant to be the texturization, obviously. So I started by just adding a little bit more to the areas where it already took place in the accidental application of it. And then I added some in that area where I have the spoon now. I had already added a little bit and just coming in and adding a little bit more for you to see. So I really took some time to look at the composition and allowed also the initial pour to dry thoroughly before I started adding this on. So it might have been drying for a couple of weeks before I started adding on top of it with this texturization. And I added some more white around some of these cells because I wanted them to pop a little bit more. Now some of that I added strategically with a brush, and some of it I added strategically just with the spoon. And here are the final displayed results. I feel that this looks great in these two orientations, although I think the upright orientation, the vertical orientation, is my favorite. But I would love to hear from you what your favorite is. Which way do you think looks the best? All right, thanks for being here, and I'll see you around my channel again soon.